the NFL football operations has tweeted out. Following discussions with head coaches, club personnel, and NFL officiating, the 32 teams have received an update on instant replay review of pass interference. Clubs will have 1 week to provide additional feedback before the competition committee communicates the final rule. Here we go. After the 2-minute warning of each half and during overtime, the replay official will stop the game to initiate a review for pass interference under stricter criteria than for other reviewable plays to prevent excessive game stoppages. Okay. So now, before we go any further, just to, I guess, previously on NFL football operations. The NFC Championship game led to what we saw at the owners' meeting back in March, which is instant replay, offensive and defensive pass interference now has instant replay as a backstop. Fold that into reviewable plays. Then after all that, the question was, well, what about the last 2 minutes of the half? If it's up to the booth to decide, if it's up to somebody in New York City to decide whether to stop, how do we keep that uniform when 7 games are going on at once? Person X does Bills-Jets. Person Y does Ravens-Bengals. They might have a different idea of what the criteria is, not even if it's been described and it's codified, and you're just human beings making these decisions.
Right.
So maybe you let the coaches challenge this thing, because if the booth buzzes down, how many times can you stop a game for pass interference if there's somebody passing to get down the field to try and win a game? So let's leave it in the hands of the coaches, because that's at least a finite pool of challenges that are going to be allowed. Coaches, are not allowed to challenge anything in the last 2 minutes. It's up to the booth to do that, and overtime. So if you just limit it to a coach now being allowed to challenge in the last 2 minutes, but only for pass interference, we've heard that, and we're like, that makes it even better. You might even have fewer replay challenges throughout the whole game, because coaches need to say that.
Because they need to have one in the back.
But what happens if the circumstances require a coach challenging stuff during the game because poor officiating or good officiating and you just couldn't see it? What happens if the coach has no challenges left? What if the coach gets both challenges right, gets a third, and uses that and has no challenges left? It's not because the coach got something wrong. What happens then? Then the reason why we made instant replay reviewable in the first place, to prevent what happened at the NFC Championship game, can happen again. So they kept it with the NFL officiating crew at 345 Park Avenue. The booth officials, if you will. The replay official is going to be able to stop the game, but under stricter criteria than for other reviewable plays to prevent excessive game stoppages. What does that mean? Part 2 of the tweet today from @FootballOperations. A decision on the field will only be reversed when there is, quote unquote, clear and obvious visual evidence that warrants the change. All right.
Self-explanatory,
I guess. You know it when you see it.
Yeah, we saw it last year.
We saw it in the NFC Championship game.
We knew it.
It's kind of like Dirk Diggler at the end of Boogie Nights. You know it when you see it.
Thank you.
Okay. Last one. Now, what about a Hail Mary? Because anytime that ball gets launched in the end zone, how many times do you see tussling that upon further review could constitute pass interference, but officials, human beings on the spot, just basically swallow the whistle? As long as you don't take out a billy club and hit somebody with it and steal their wallet, they're not going to throw a penalty on that. What about now? What about now that you can now put it under instant replay where you can Zapruder film this thing and parse it out to the nth degree and see what you can see? So the answer to that was, okay, so let's decide what technically a Hail Mary is, so you could just carve that out and say that's not reviewable. So then what's a Hail Mary? It's got to be how far out. Is it 30 yards out? Is it 35 yards out? Is it 40 yards out? And how much time needs to be? Like if you're going to have to throw a Hail Mary from, like, say, the 20-yard line all the way to the 50, right? Sometimes, didn't Aaron Rodgers do that once? In order to get it into the end zone, he had to throw 2 Hail Marys?
was against the Cardinals.
So does throwing it from the 20, your own 20, to the other opponent's 40, does that constitute as a Hail Mary? Does it have to be thrown in the end zone? You have to have a certain number of people in the end zone? My head's exploding. And I guess the NFL competition committee and the football operations group, their heads exploded too, because they punted, is the only way to describe it. The last aspect of this tweet, I'll put my glasses back on again. All passing plays will be subject to review for pass interference. The Hail Mary play will be reviewed in replay, consistent with the guidelines for officiating the play on the field. In other words, it'll be a Hail Mary for you to get a buzz and a booth to buzz
on
in.
A Hail Mary.
On a Hail Mary.
Which is great, which is fine.
So, but what it is, again, is it's not being codified. It's not being written into language. It's being left up to interpretation.
But how often does the Hail Mary play even happen?
Not often, but it happened at the end of the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl win. Ball was in the air. The ball from Brady's hand, it was arcing in the air, heading towards Gronk.
I was there.
In the air.
We were all there.
And so it's going to happen at some point. Maybe the booth buzzes in or a Hail Mary happens and we're all sitting there holding our breath. Is it over? Is it over? Do we wait? And then we zoom in on the official and they wave it off. Go home. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and you can roll your eyes at all this, but it's worth it to prevent what happened in the NFC Championship game from ever happening again. It is awful what happened in that game. It was egregious. It needs to be fixed. The NFL addressed it, and they fixed it. It may not be perfect. Let's see how it works, but that had to be done. Now go do the rule about fumbling in the end zone, gives the ball to the defense.
Oh, stop.
I'm telling you, folks, at some point in our lifetimes, and if not our lifetimes, our children's lifetimes, unless this ball that we're going around the sun on burns up.
Asteroid.
Okay.
2050.
But it's going to happen. The country is sitting there watching the Super Bowl. 30 seconds to go, 25 seconds to go. Tick, tick, tick. Guy runs the ball. He's got the ball, either running it out of the backfield or on a nice swing pass. There's the end zone. There's the pylon. Tick, tick, tick. Reaches out for the pylon. Ball goes loose in the end zone and through. And the defense that was on its heels the entire time gets the ball. Game over. And half the country's going to go, what the hell just happened? This is my first football game. This is only my third football game. I've been rooting for this team for the first time my entire life all season long because my wife or my husband or whoever told me I had to root for the team and I love this player. And all of a sudden you're telling me I don't get the football? Why? Wait a minute. You get the football if the ball was on the 1 yard line, but through the end zone it doesn't? The whole country's head is going to freaking explode. And I'm trying to head this off at the pass.
Stop thinking negatively.
Excuse me. I'm doing this for good, not evil.
You're doing it so in the end of the day you can say you changed the rule.
Thank you. Casey's standing and slow clapping.
I understand.
Thank you, Joe Rogan. He's slow clapping like I'm Lucas, right? Isn't that what it is? Is that what it is?
I don't know what that's from.
It's a movie.
Well, I mean, hey, Del Tufo, that didn't narrow it down.
Telling you it's coming.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.